This deck is so back after an undeserved absence from the metagame. I have been absolutely crushing with Ajax Midrange. The basic premise of this deck should be fairly clear from taking a cursory look at it. This is a deck that is looking to play a game where it puts out more points than its opponents, and its disruption is able to keep its opponent's point output down, prevent combos from going off, and disrupt the opponent's total point total, as well as some specific game plan style disruption. The way it accomplishes this is because there are so many different kinds of targeted disruption when it comes to the Afflict strategy. This might look like it's a pile of Afflict cards, and it sort of is, but each of these Afflict cards has a specific role, and the fact that there is such a variety in Afflict cards in terms of the roles that they play makes this deck a slightly more flexible and powerful deck than it otherwise would be. An example of this is that it's playing US Agent and Man-Thing. These are cards that are good against very opposite strategies, but they can be employed against most decks. However, they have extra value against decks that are playing a bunch of 5 and 6 drops, like a Doom 2099 deck in the case of US Agent, or playing a bunch of small stuff in the case of Man-Thing. Another example of generic Afflict cards having metagame relevance is the Scorpion Cassandra Nova package, which is how you handle Surtur Scar decks. Many people in my comments seem to believe that Surtur Scar is dead and gone, and that is absolutely not true. I personally believe it is still one of the best decks in the game at this point, and so packing real answers to it in the form of Scorpion making their 10 cost cards in hand, or their 10 power cards in hand 9 power, and Cassandra Nova making their 10 power cards in deck 9 power, means that you'll be able to have a good matchup into what is otherwise a very powerful and difficult to beat deck for other mid-range decks. The Surtur Scar deck is generally one that goes over the top of mid-range decks, and that makes it a hard matchup for a lot of decks like this, except when we have those cards and we're able to curve them out, it becomes basically unwinnable for them, which means that we have relevant tech that is also good on rate. And I think that's the specific thing that this deck has as an advantage. All of its relevant tech is good on rate. You have stuff like US Agent, which is great against the Doom 2099 deck, but it's also just a 2-3 that goes to a 2-6 if you play it against any lane that has a card that it hits in it, right? You have Man-Thing, which is great against certain decks that are looking to have low point output type stuff, but it's also just a 4-7 with a little bit of upside if you play it in a lane with 1 or 2 things that have that kind of ability on it, right? So that's the ultimate thing that makes this deck good. We have Cassandra Nova as a 3-6, Scorpion as a 2-3 plus, right? And these are cards that have specific metagame applications that are also doing what this deck wants to do. They're scaling your Ajax, things like that. And they're just great on rate. So basically every card in this deck is excellent on rate with specific applications across matchups. I would describe the glue of this deck, though, as being the 4 drops here. The glue of this deck specifically is Malekith Anti-Venom. I think a lot of people over-index for this deck being an Ajax deck, and I think calling it Ajax Midrange is still roughly correct because it gets the point across the best, but really what this deck is an Anti-Venom Malekith Midrange deck. The way to understand these cards is that Malekith effectively draws a card and puts it on the board. That's obviously very strong. It does that at a good rate. 4-6 plus whatever the power of the card it's getting is, so it can be up to like a 4-9, a 4-10 some of the time. And of course, there are a bunch of situations in which it is getting you towards that loot cage that you need, getting you towards that hazmat that you need, making it more likely that you draw those cards, if not drawing those cards itself. And then, of course, Anti-Venom is a card that makes the next card you would draw free, which means that it is able to give you massive advantage on the final turn of the game because you have such a wide range of possible outcomes. When you have a free card in hand and they don't know what that free card is, you can do pretty much anything with it. Those are the core cards of this deck, and then everything else is just a great rate card. Zabu is a 1/2 that can discount up to 3 energy in this deck, and because your 1s are so minimalistic in terms of other options, Zabu has sort of taken precedence over Hydra Bob because it's not actually the world's biggest difference. Like, yes, it's 1/2 versus 1/4. Yes, Hydra Bob is going to be better with your Iron Patriot, but you don't necessarily need that, and also if you Zabu into a 4-drop, that's going to be the best thing you can play on your Iron Patriot lane anyway. And so Zabu has sort of become not necessarily the default 1-drop across the metagame, but one of the most popular, if not the most popular 1-drops in the game in the wake of the Hydra Bob nerf, because now Hydra Bob is not 5, it is now 4, and that is like a more reasonable difference, right? Like, if Hydra Bob was still 5, we might still be playing Hydra Bob instead of Zabu here, but Hydra Bob is 4, and the gap between 2 and 4 is smaller than the gap between 2 and 5. As is, Zabu is just here so you can get easier curve stuff happening. If you're ever actually able to play a 4-drop on 3 with this deck, it's so unbelievably powerful. You have so much strength if you can go 4-drop, 4-drop, 4-drop in this deck on 3, 4, 5. That's just a nearly unbeatable curve against basically any mid-range deck, and if you have relevant tech for the matchup, you're just gonna win it most of the time. Hazmat's cool, but I do think there is this thing where this deck gets sort of pigeonholed as an Ajax Hazmat deck, and it can be that, but it doesn't have to be that. In the matchups where you need something that goes very tall, you are going to want to be an Ajax Hazmat deck. But that is not necessarily the core of why this deck works, nor is it something you're going to be needing to do in every matchup. Plenty of the time, you're going to want to be a 4-drop plus Hazmat deck on the final turn of the game. You're going to want to be a Luke Cage plus Hazmat deck on the final turn of the game. You're going to want to be doing other things with your Hazmat than just making Ajax big. Because a lot of the time, you won't need to play Ajax, or you will have wanted to play a different card. Obviously, when everything goes right and you hit your Ajax with an anti-venom, yeah, you're the greatest Ajax Hazmat deck of all time, and you never say no to that. But I do think that people sort of over-index for this deck being an Ajax Hazmat deck, when what that is, that package in this deck is more of your method of going tall if you need to, and not something that has to happen every game. Of course, Hazmat can also be played earlier. Let's say you're looking to disrupt the 10s deck and make sure that they don't have any discounts on Scar. Getting all of their 10s to be 9s is a great way to do that. You can do that with Scorpion, you can do that with Cassandra Nova, and you can do that with Hazmat. You're not the world's greatest Iron Patriot deck, but you are pretty okay at winning his lanes. Between Zabu'd 4-drops on 3 and Cassandra Nova, you are typically reasonably able to do it. One play pattern that I've been investigating just a little bit more is I know people typically don't enjoy playing Iron Patriot into the lane where they have a 1-drop because that means that they then have to play a 3-drop there as well. But we have such, like, not as much in the way of giant 3-drops, I think. And so a lot of the time with this deck, if I have Zabu and Iron Patriot, I will be playing Zabu and Iron Patriot in the same lane. And then a lot of the time it's like, okay, I'll happily put a Cassandra Nova here. I'm hoping they don't have anything big enough to contest this, right? Like, you wouldn't contest a lane where you're down 5, would you? And so a lot of the time, because you aren't packing like Zemo, Gladiator, Speed, the big boys of the 3-drops, right? You really only have Cassandra. You kind of really do want that extra 2 points. In addition, I think a lot of people have sort of realized that people don't like playing the 1-drop and the 2-drop in the same lane when it comes to Iron Patriot. And so I'm trying to zig when everyone else is zagging, right? Like, you don't see a lot of Quicksilver Iron Patriot same lane. You see a lot of Quicksilver 1 lane, Iron Patriot another lane, and I think right now the way to go about that is do the opposite of that because everyone else is doing that. Scorpion's great against Scar decks to make sure that they do not have the ability to actually get a free Scar. It also can prevent them from having the ability to get procs on their Surtur. Extremely powerful in that context, but also just a 2-3 with upside. Honestly, the only bad part about Scorpion is that it can get pulled off of Malekith, and that kind of sucks, but really, other than that, you're just very happy to see this. Lots of decks playing big boys right now. Like, this is yet another way we have to prevent Surtur Scar from getting as big as they really want to get. We have the ability to drag their 4-10s down to 7, the 5-10 down to 7. All of that stuff can then prevent them from being able to play that free Scar, which is so integral to their game plan. They really do need that against this deck. You have enough points that they do actually have to have the free Scar a lot of the time in order to beat you, so if you are able to prevent them from having that, you are just in a very overpoweringly good matchup. This is also just a great example of how this deck just sort of naturally has tech because of the depth of Afflict cards that they've made, because they've made so many different ways to be an Afflict card. There are Afflict cards that are naturally better against certain decks and naturally worse against others, and those are effectively serving the role of tech cards in this deck. It's part of why this deck actually makes sense. This is one of them, right? You are effectively running the best tech card in the game against anyone playing Doom 2099. That's what this card is. And so you have this incredibly powerful answer to a very metagame relevant strategy that people just aren't really going to be able to deal with, and you mitigate any downside of it by being a Luke Cage deck, so it really only hits them. Cass is quite good against Surtur Scar decks. Again, the whole point is making sure their 10s aren't actually 10s. Scar needs to see a 10 on the board in order to actually get its discount. Surtur needs to see a 10 as it's played in order to get that buff. So Scorpion into Cassandra Nova is basically a snap condition against that deck. You're just going to beat them a lot of the time. And Cassandra Nova also has additional relevance in this metagame as long as people are playing Arishem, if people are playing Thanos, people are playing whatever. Cassandra Nova puts them in the dirt if they start with more cards than you'd think. It is also the best option we have for an Iron Patriot backup 3 cost. Luke Cage is how you turn all of your cards into one-sided afflicts. This is a card that obviously turns Hazmat into a very relevant threat. It turns stuff like Man-Thing into a card you can play pretty much anywhere. It turns stuff like US Agent into something that doesn't really affect you. Very powerful, but there is actually a note here is some of the time you actually will care more about getting a 20 power Ajax or something like that than you will about losing points of power from your other lanes off of a Hazmat. And so there are going to be games where you want to play Ajax Hazmat, but you don't want to play Luke Cage. On the whole, though, the real fear you have when you play this deck is that your opponent has this card. Another tech card that just happens to have the word Afflict on it, Red Guardian is your catch-all for things that your other cards are unable to actually catch. If your opponent plays out a Luke Cage, this is a great way of trying to hit it. If they are out here playing stuff like Iron Man, great way of trying to deal with it if you don't draw US Agent. There's just a lot that this card is able to bring to bear. A lot of power, a lot of relevant metagame strength, and of course, a -2 Affliction proc. This is also effectively a 3/5, so if you don't have priority, it's not the world's worst Iron Patriot backup either. I think a lot of people read Malekith incorrectly. This card says, draw a card and put it on the board. And that is just a very powerful thing to do because it gets that card out of your deck and you actually effectively get to play it for free. And that is really good because A, you run a decent amount of 2-drops that you would love to play for free. B, you run a decent amount of 2-drops that you don't want to be drawing late in the game. And so Malekith is self-solving here. Not only is it making your draws better so you can have a more powerful, on average, anti-venom on 5, it is also just, free Luke Cage, free 5-power Red Guardian, free, like the bad ones are like free Scorpion and free Iron Patriot, but you don't want to be drawing those late anyway, so it's helping you regardless. Making a card free is very powerful. Luke Cage taking away the downside of this is very powerful. Anti-Venom is just quite strong. You are going to want to keep an eye on what's actually in the deck when you're going for this, because a lot of the time if you just default to playing this, you're going to end up in situations where you just get like a free 2/3 or whatever, and that usually sucks because that's not a very good stat line to make free. But the high rolls on this guy are absolutely monstrous. Another example of a tech card without being a tech card is Man-Thing. It's great on rate, obviously, 4/7. Everyone plays something small, so it's going to be 4/7 plus, right? But also, there are decks that are very heavy on small stuff, right? This is a card that is going to have outsized impact against some of those decks, and then normal impact everywhere else. And that's really the core of this deck. You have a bunch of cards that are like pretty good all the time, and then against certain decks, they are almost unbeatably powerful. And there's not a lot of decks that you don't have something relevant for. The big guy, Ajax, is sort of the namesake of this deck, if only because it's the easiest way to convey what the deck is doing. But I do think people over-index for him. He is there for matchups where you explicitly need to go tall. That is not actually every matchup, and he comes with a risk of, like, if you invest him in the wrong location, you're over investing in that location, and he might not actually have been needed there. And so there is something to that, I think, a lot of the time, but that said, the deck does need a way to go tall. Ajax is obviously a great way to go tall, and he does go extremely tall if you really want to make that happen. So what's the actual ethos? What is the point of this deck? Why is it good? This deck is good because it effectively has built-in tech cards for a massive variety of matchups. You want to run into Surtur Scar deck? Well, you have Scorpion and Cassandra Nova. You run into Arishem, you have Cassandra Nova. You run into a deck that is playing a lot of one-drops, you have, of course, your Man-Thing. You run into a Doom 2099 deck, you have US Agent and Hazmat. There's just a lot that this deck has by virtue of the way they've designed Afflict cards that I think makes it look like more of a easy build or a deck that doesn't have as many answers as it does. Because so many of the Afflict cards are targeted at certain archetypes, it is able to have generally relevant answers to a wide variety of threats that are also proactive threats on their own. This is a powerful position for it to be put in. It also gets to run an excellent card advantage, energy advantage package with the 4-drop package of Malekith and Anti-Venom, which sort of draws the whole deck together and makes it more able to get to those relevant cards when it can. I'm not saying this deck is effectively Serra control, but there's a lot of similar dynamics here where you are a deck that has certain cards that are better and worse in certain matchups, but unlike Serra control, your tech cards have good bodies. And that is, I think, the most relevant thing about this deck. The worst part, though, the bad part about this deck, is that all of this is dependent on your opponent not having a loot cage, and the second they have a loot cage, you're playing a bunch of fairly medium cards. And that, I think, is the real issue that this deck has and always will have, which is loot cage exists and your opponents can play it too. All right, y'all, thank you so much for making it through that video. I have been KM Best. We're about to jump into some gameplay. Remember to like and subscribe if you made it this far. Check out the gameplay if you'd like, and I will see you in the next one. All right, we got a chance at our Scorpion. We just got a top deck Cast Nova. And suddenly we're like super in this as far as making sure that their Scar or whatever the fuck play doesn't work. Yo. Yo. I was hoping if I didn't snap, you would cope stay. We just did it to them, right? They're just dunzo. We just did it to them. Am I correct in assuming that? Like, they have one shot at this. Okay, I guess I'm wrong. Oh, fuck. It's fine, but like, oh, fuck, dude. That was almost really scary. Terrible, my man. You got rewarded for some dog shit. That is ass, my dude. Oh, we do not beat this. We do not beat discard in a million years. Unless they super brick. It just does not happen. I'm confused why that wouldn't go middle. Grandmaster? Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we're dead. There's the Grandmaster. Surely we're dead, yes? Always Cope Stay? Hell yeah. There's the MODOK, right? So here's Man-Thing, Ajax, Hiya. There's MODOK for 4, but it does double Dakin only a little bit less than we would expect. Yeah, we got there. Okay, we're good. Cool. Well, I'm never drawing that. Okay, I guess I can technically maybe draw that card. Whoa. I'm gonna try to draw the card. I realize this is like, you know, I get Red Guardian or some shit, but... like, this is like a Sarah control deck. So I'm probably dead, right? Not dead. Gamered. What the fuck is this doing here, though? Okay, well that's fucking dog shit. Oh, Giganta. Jeez, dude. If I get a loot cage, it's great, but, you know. Oh, I did get a loot cage. That's nice. Truth is out there. How are you finding Scorpion in this list? It's been good. Okay, so oh my god. Oh my god, we got shit on. That is actually our loot cage. How did he know? How did he know, dude? Oh my god. Wait. Wait, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I just remembered. It doesn't actually work. It doesn't fucking... I think I still win that lane. And I think that's the thing that I'm trying to get at there. That's sort of, at least, my thought process on it. Fuck. I mean, I'm actually just like... They're gonna, like, play Magic or whatever. Oh. Are you not a, You're a clog deck. Oh, fuck. I'm hoping they just can't full clog me. And then next turn I can do whatever it is I need to do, you know? Like, I got this Sarah. She's fucking chillin'. And I'm hoping they just can't totally shit all over me. Yep. Alright. This is where they leave. They didn't leave. Alright, either I'm fucked or something crazy's happening here. Yeah, man. Congratulations on the cannonball. I hope you're happy. Dog. My guy. My guy. No, it fucking isn't. And then, like, people played it and it had, like, a fucking 47% win rate or some shit. It's like, yeah, that's the average butt deck experience. Binding's great. I just finished a really nice read. I just finished a trio of books. A trilogy. Quicksilver deck, missed turn 2. I'll snap. Quicksilver deck, missed turn 2. Yeah. What books? I read the Lycanius trilogy. You know what they say? When you never skip leg day. I don't know if I would call it good, but it's like I enjoy reading. I enjoy long reads. And that took those books took me like 3 or 4 days. So I'm just like, that's always sick. Immortal Hulk is really good. I read Mistborn years ago. It's like on that bookshelf over there. Like before I started doing digital reading, that's how long ago I read Mistborn. Years ago. What archetype could Nebula, Adam Warlock, Rocket, and group package fit into? Well, I mean, that just sounds awful. So I'm not sure it fits into anything. That just sounds like some shit that sucks. Yeah, I've read Stormlight, of course. Whoa! Hiya. Hiya. The addition of Cassandra Nova makes it really good into RSM. Hey, maybe I'll get a 3-cost 4-drop that can go there. Ooh. Ooh. Close. Talk about a worthless card, though. Oof. Wow. They're drawing some cards. They run a red guardian, so, you know. Thank God the Cosmo came down. That was gonna be scary as shit, dog. The Juggernaut is kind of what I'm thinking about here. Got the Jug read correct. I don't know if I win, though. Looks like I do. They go up to 8 here. We go down 2, but we still win. Got the Jug read, though. Actually, he is 100% allowed to do that shit. No need to be salty, my man. Do you think we're actually getting mad here? That's actually so insane. Like, bro, we're all friends. Boy, someone's playing a fucking Wiccan. Yeah, I mean, I know you're playing a Wiccan. I'm with it. Not a Wiccan. An Acid Arrow? Oh, and a Wiccan. Yeah, again, I'm with it. This all makes sense to me. All right, I've got some big fears here. Thank God. Is that a, hey, look, I got a Shang in hand, Fenris? That was not an inappropriate read of it, I think. Ouch. I mean, we still win. But, like, ouch, dude. Anyway, yeah, we played around that Shang pretty clearly. I'm doing a lot of drawing Iron Patriot, which I like. I'm a fan of doing that. I don't think this deck has anything that can go left, but maybe they do. They did, and I did need to play this way, I guess. Wow. Look at all that shit that can go left. Really close. I win a tiebreaker. Close game.